What if the biggest crises hitting America right now aren't what they seem? The angry protests in our streets, a government that can't even stay open, the economic pain you feel every time you pull out your wallet. What if they aren't separate problems? The media serves them up as a chaotic, disconnected mess. Political drama over here, economic anxiety over there, social unrest somewhere else. They're wrong. What if these are all just symptoms, a chain reaction spiraling out from a single decision? This is the story of how a foreign war that began just last month is systematically dismantling America from the inside out. This isn't about battlefields in the Middle East. It's about the hollowing out of the United States. And it's happening right now. The No Kings protests, government gridlock, economic despair. The official story says these are different crises. They aren't. They are the cascading consequences of a war the media refuses to connect to our domestic collapse. A war that didn't start with the first missile strike, but began long ago in the halls of a government that had already forgotten its people. To understand how a war in Iran breaks America, you have to see the three ways a foreign conflict connects directly to your daily life. This isn't a conspiracy, it's just cause and effect. First, there's the economic artery. 20% of the world's oil flows through a tiny 21-mile-wide choke point called the Strait of Hormuz. When that strait closes because of a war with Iran, as it has, the global economy has a heart attack. It's not just the price of gas, though that's the first thing you feel. It's the price of everything. The diesel for the trucks that deliver your food, the natural gas that heats your home, the cost of plastics and fertilizers, it all explodes. A war in the Persian Gulf doesn't stay there. It lands squarely on your grocery bill and your credit card statement. The second is political. A government has a limited amount of attention and money. For the better part of a year, Washington's focus has been singular: Iran. The buildup to this war consumed the entire political establishment. While our leaders were debating sanctions and positioning carrier groups, our own country was left to rust. The most basic job of a government, funding itself, was treated as an afterthought. This isn't an accident. When a nation's elite gets obsessed with projecting power abroad, they inevitably neglect their duties at home. The result is paralysis. Government shutdowns aren't just political theater. They're what happens when a government decides managing a conflict 6,000 miles away is more important than keeping its own parks open and its federal workers paid. The third connection is the most corrosive: social trust. A nation is held together by the belief that the system, more or less, works for its people. An unpopular, undeclared war, launched without congressional approval, shatters that trust. When you see your government spending billions on a foreign war while your own community crumbles, you don't just get angry, you lose faith. You start to see the government as an alien entity with its own agenda. This is the fuel for social unraveling. It's the fertile ground where movements like No Kings grow. A raw outcry from a people who feel they are being ruled, not governed. The first wave of the cascade hit your wallet hard. On February 28, 2026, joint U.S.-Israeli strikes, codenamed Operation Epic Fury, hit targets across Iran. Within days, Iran didn't retaliate against the U.S. Navy. It did what it always promised. It shut down the Strait of Hormuz. Instantly, the largest oil supply disruption in history was underway. The numbers tell a story of pure economic shock. Global crude prices, which had been around $70 a barrel, shot past $120. Here at home, the effect was brutal. The average national price for a gallon of gas is now approaching $4, a jump of nearly 80 cents in just 1 month. For diesel, the lifeblood of our supply chain, it's even worse, up over $1.30 in the same period. And this isn't just an inconvenience at the pump. It's a poison seeping into our entire economy. Every single item in your grocery store has that fuel cost baked into it. Food prices are climbing because the cost to transport it has gone through the roof. But it goes deeper. The Strait's closure didn't just stop oil. It stopped a massive volume of liquefied natural gas, or LNG. That sent a second shockwave, hitting everything from manufacturing to the cost of your electricity. The International Energy Agency is calling this the greatest global energy security challenge in history. This isn't the 1970s oil crisis. Today, our just-in-time global economy can't handle a shock of this magnitude. The war has exposed the critical vulnerability we've ignored for decades. Our entire way of life depends on tankers passing through a tiny strip of water controlled by a hostile power. This pain is feeding a monster that was already here: debt. Total consumer debt in the U.S. had already hit a record $18.8 trillion at the end of 2025. Now, with the war reigniting inflation, the Federal Reserve is trapped. It can't lower interest rates to help families when inflation is surging. The rising cost of the national debt, now at $39 trillion, will force cuts to programs like Social Security. The war isn't just costing money to fight, it's actively making every other financial problem in America worse. Long before the first shots of Operation Epic Fury, the war had already claimed its first victim: the U.S. government. The paralysis we see today isn't new, but the obsessive focus on Iran has pushed a broken system into total collapse. The evidence is all there. From October 1st to November 12th, 2025, the U.S. government suffered the longest shutdown in its history. For 43 days, huge parts of the federal government just stopped working because Congress couldn't pass a basic budget. The media blamed partisan bickering over domestic spending. But the truth is, the entire political machine was distracted. The White House and congressional leadership were consumed by Iran, leaving the most fundamental job of governance to fail. National parks were closed. Social Security helplines went silent. Around 800,000 federal workers went without pay. According to nonpartisan analysis, it wiped at least $7 billion from our economy. And it didn't stop there. On February 14th, 2026, just 2 weeks before the war, funding for the Department of Homeland Security lapsed. That shutdown is still ongoing today. You can see the effects at airports, where travelers face nightmare lines as the TSA buckles. Over 300 TSA screeners have reportedly quit. Meanwhile, key agencies like FEMA and the Coast Guard are hamstrung, right when a foreign crisis demands they be at their sharpest. This is what happens when a government prioritizes conflict abroad over stability at home. The very politicians who demand a muscular foreign policy are the same ones who have let the core functions of our own country wither. In the name of projecting strength overseas, we have made ourselves catastrophically weak here at home. The government shutdowns of 2025 and 2026 aren't a sideshow to the Iran war. They are the prologue. When the economy fails and the government gives up, the social contract is the last thing to break. On March 28, 2026, we saw it happen. Millions of Americans poured into the streets, from New York City to rural Idaho, under a single banner: No Kings. The media is trying to paint these as simple anti-war protests, but that misses the point entirely. To get it, you have to listen to what people are actually saying. They're protesting the price of food, the chaos in federal policy, the gutting of public services, and the feeling of being ignored by an unaccountable elite. The war is the final straw, the ultimate symbol of a government that serves itself, not its citizens. The name itself, No Kings, is a direct rejection of a president launching a major war without congressional approval, an act that has drawn anger from both parties. It speaks to a deep fury at what many see as authoritarian overreach. It's a response to the feeling that the levers of power are being pulled by a distant class of people who see the lives of ordinary Americans as secondary to their geopolitical games. These aren't the protests of the 2000s. The anger is rawer, more personal. It's fueled by the economic pain and the political failure. It's the anger of people watching billions flow to a war while they can't afford groceries. It's the frustration of watching the government shut itself down over political games while their own towns fall apart. The rally in Minnesota, where Bruce Springsteen performed a song written about fatal shootings by federal agents, tells the whole story. The movement is a fusion of outrage, because for millions of Americans, domestic problems and foreign wars are no longer separate. They are two sides of the same oppressive coin. The economic collapse, the political paralysis, and the social unraveling are not separate stories. They are a single story, a chain reaction. The war with Iran is the event that ties it all together, a massive gravity well, pulling America's resources, attention, and unity into a black hole. For decades, we were told America could be both the world's policeman and the land of prosperity. We were told that decisions made in Washington about faraway places had little impact on our daily lives. That was a lie. We are now living in the consequences of that lie. The true cost of endless foreign intervention isn't measured in dollars spent or bombs dropped. It's measured in the decay of the nation itself. It's measured in the boarded-up storefronts on Main Street. It's measured in the crumbling trust in our institutions. It's measured in the anger and division in our streets. This is how a nation is destroyed, not by an enemy army from the outside, but from the inside out, by its own choices and its own refusal to see the connection between the wars it fights abroad and the country it is letting die at home. If you want to understand the geopolitical forces that set the stage for all this, I recommend my previous video, The Real Reason the New Cold War is Starting. It provides the essential backstory for where we are today.